Okay, it's about Conde.co. Next. It's several information about Conde.co as a campaign team for advocacy of the law on the sexual crime in Indonesia. We call it Undang-Undang TPKS. And also Conde is a co-writer for Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women, CEDAW. And also Conde has a desk research and journalist of gender data, so many research and on media and gender-based violence issues like sexual violence issues, also abortion issues and domestic worker issues. Conde.co also has several special desks on voice of workers, like a campaign to stop violence and harassment in the world of work, and also women's law clinic. Next. Yeah. Next. I want to tell about why so crucial in a woman journalist about OGBV. You can see that latest report from UN Women and UNFPA in 2021, online misogyny rules, including trolling, sexual harassment, and also victim blaming. And women rights defenders in 2022 showed that 50 out of 150 cases of vilification recorded as common target of sexist insult, derogatory remarks, and misogynist language. And specific for journalists or women journalists that surveyed 2017 for 100 women journalists in 50 countries has multiple forms of violence like harassment, online harassment, and also including doxing. Yeah, next. Okay. EFG that represent more than 600,000 journalists in 146 countries has conducted follow-up survey on May 2022, which shows that 61% of 161 journalists knew about the cases of online gender-based violence, of online harassment or abuse against their colleagues in newsroom. But only 5% claims the media included provisions addressing online abuse in collective agreements. And two-thirds affirmed that online harassment is not a priority. And 44 among them were not even discussed. And how it's the context in Indonesia. Next. Okay. Action of media companies. Survey Alliance of Independent Journalists, or we call AJI Jakarta, in 2020 shows only 4 journalists from 34 journalists were processed and assisted. This is closely related of misogyny culture and also victim blaming. And how about legal protection? Indonesia has passed law on the crime of sexual violence, we call Undang-Undang TPKS, but it will still be implemented. So it still takes time. Okay, thank you. And also specific to the media, the Press Council, Dewan Pers, does not yet have special protection rules. So this is so weak of legal protection. And the challenge of independent indie media like Conde.co, we are vulnerable of the digital attack like OGBV because we are active in covering human rights, diversity, and also various discrimination, but we guarantees in the press roles because indie media are not recognized as a media company in Indonesia. And next, Conde.co experienced in digital attacks. We can say that on May 2020, Conde.co Twitter's account hacked and no longer accessible. We has no longer reported the viral case of sexual violence. And also still in 2020, Conde.co received a warning threat on social media after reporting about Indonesian's government policy, namely Omnibus Law, which had a negative impact on women. Until now, harassment and doxing comments often happen to Condes journalists, such as for critical reporting on the resistance to objectification of women, and also if we reporting about LGBTQI discrimination.
1 more minute.
Okay, just 1 second. How is Conde.co strategies about online gender-based violence? Internal training on digital security is important for us. And also we collaborated with several social media platform. Oh, sorry, next slide. Okay, you can see that cooperation with social media platform for online gender-based violence mitigation and applying journalistic code of conduct of journalists that also have the gender perspective. And we also being a bridging for the survivors online gender-based violence with help service. Next.
Thank you.
Okay.
Sorry, I have to stop you here.
We need to save space. Okay. Thank you, Afra.
Yeah, thank you for highlighting from the women journalist perspective on how you received threats and also how you try to tackle inside your independent media. And I just wanted to highlight as well for these sessions, we know that during the COVID-19 pandemic, the online gender-based violence cases increased at anywhere part of this world. And I would like to invite our next speaker remotely, who joins remotely, Bishakha, from Points of View, to share how the community-based helpline provided support for this online gender-based violence victims. Bishakha,
thank you so much. Thanks so much, Afra, and I'm guessing and hoping you can hear me. Okay, super, thank you again. I live in Mumbai, India, and I'm very happy to join this meeting from my home. I wanted to talk about our experience of starting a helpline to address online gender-based violence and harassment. As the previous speaker has said, we had known for many years that this is not just an emerging problem anymore, but has become a significant day-to-day problem for a number of women, trans, queer persons who are online, and it's affecting our ability to participate and express ourselves online. So last year we decided to move from trying to understand the problem to trying to do something about it. And this year on Valentine's Day, we launched our voice helpline called Tech Sakhi in Hindi. The reason it's voice and the reason it's Hindi is because Hindi is the national language in India, although there are many other languages, of course. The reason it's voice is because we were very, very keen to actually reach the people who are most underserved in a sense, that is women, girls, trans and queer persons who are coming online for the first time and who may not all have access to smartphones and many of whom are still using feature phones, and many of whom, even if they have access to smartphones, come from low-income families where the phone might be a shared phone. So we felt that also in terms of literacy levels, this way we could ensure through a voice helpline that it was much more inclusive for people who have not been formally educated. The first thing that I want to say is that we faced a significant challenge. The helpline was set up remotely during the pandemic. And so we had 5 women who were receiving calls, and they were all in different parts of India. And we were working through a telephone service provider to mask their numbers, etc., and maintain privacy. The first thing that happened actually was that we experienced a very significant challenge right at the start. We were getting about 20 to 30 phone calls a day through outreach and promotion, but the vast majority of the phone calls were coming from male callers. almost like 60 to 70%. And some of them were just plain curiosity. Some of them were actually harassing phone calls. So in a very strange way, as soon as our helpline began, the women who were, staffing the helpline started facing exactly the problem that we were actually trying to respond to. And so we had to put in place safeguards to ensure that the emotional and mental health of the women staffing the helpline did not get affected, because this continued for almost 2 weeks. And we took a number of measures at our end and, various steps. Over time, luckily, this has changed, although we still continue to get some male callers. I would say between February 14th, when we started, and June, we got almost 1,500 phone calls. And I'll give you a sense of the kind of, questions that come to us. Many of them are related to digital safety, and many of them are related to digital violence. So for instance, safety related is just things like, where can I download Google Pay and how do I safely use it, right? So some of them are digital literacy related, some of them are digital security. How can I prevent other people from logging onto my Instagram ID from other devices? Sometimes we get messages or links that can hack our phone and take our data. How can we deal with this? This is kind of some of the questions related to digital safety. Some of them related to digital harassment. For example, I'll read out another two. One is, I'm often trolled and get abusive comments like rape threats. Sometimes it helps to call out the trollers by citing the law. What are the relevant acts, sections, and process for trolling and rape threats? Another one, despite my Facebook account being private, I think my number is being leaked to people because I get harassing calls saying they found my number on Facebook. What can I do? There are questions around blackmail, around unsolicited dick pics, all sorts of things, right? And so we have gone through a very extensive training process so that our agents or the women who staff the helpline can really give step-by-step guidance to the callers who often come from a situation where they're not familiar with digital safety and security. So sometimes a call can be as long as like 15 or 20 minutes, and sometimes also quite challenging because, you want to actually show them screenshots, right? Like step by step. This is how you report on a platform. But on voice, it's a little difficult to do that. So one of the things we are going to do in the next few years is we are going to, first of all, extend the helpline to 3 other languages in the next couple of years. One is Bengali, which is widely spoken in East India. One is Marathi, widely spoken in West India. And one is Tamil, widely spoken in South India. We are very, very keen to set this up in Indian languages rather than in English, because we find that people who speak Indian languages often there are much fewer resources online for them, right? And we also hope to take some of our findings, for example, related to blank calls, to do advocacy both with telcos, telephone companies, as well as regulatory authorities like the Telecom Regulatory Authority of India. I am not sure how much time I have left, so this is just a quick snapshot for now. Thank you again, and I'm around for any other questions.
Thank you, Bishakha, and thanks for highlighting as well, not only the amount of the calls that you received when you first started, but also the case handlers or the agents that experience harassments, because they are like the front runners of these helplines that you created, and extensive training process that they needed. I think it's very important to highlight here. And I think we can move to Ellen, who also served as a coordinator of AwasKBGO, community-based helplines for online gender-based violence from Indonesia. Ellen.
Okay, thank you. Can you hear me clearly? I hope you don't mind if I move around because I'm too nervous actually standing in on this stage. But first of all, if you interacted interacted with us during the session, I have 3 books of our newest research on online gender-based violence against women human rights defenders in Indonesia that we just released this March. So please do engage with us in the Q&A session. So, okay, let me introduce myself. I am Kusuma. I'm from Safenet, Southeast Asia Freedom of Expression Network. We are a non-profit organization advocating for human rights as advocating digital rights as human rights. So we started the AwasKBGO initiative from mid to 2018. It started as an advocacy for a victim of online gender-based violence who received this harassment through phone calls because her number is being spread around in the dating apps and then being promoted as a prostitute number. So through that, through the experience of advocating this victim, we found there is not much coordination on online gender-based violence handling in Indonesia. Even the law enforcement doesn't really understand about online gender-based violence. The public doesn't really have this awareness on online gender-based violence. So on 2019, we actually have this multi-stakeholders meeting with the Ministry of Women Empowerment and Child Protection, the National Commission on Violence Against Women. We also have invited CSO or service providers who provide helpline for victims, but they don't really have this understanding on online gender-based violence. Although it's been around Indonesia since the beginning of we are using this technology, right? So after that, we created sort of a helpline for the victims of online gender-based violence. But we need to know our capacity, right? Because we cannot do everything. So since we are a digital rights-based organization, our first service for the victim is we provide consultation for digital security and privacy. And the second, as a trusted partner of most the giant digital platforms in Indonesia, such as Meta, Twitter, TikTok, YouTube, Google, and so on, we provide a service for victim to escalate the report that is not getting any expected result from when they report by themselves and they don't get any expected result, then they can report to us and we will escalate it to the digital platform itself. So we have this initiative called AwasKBGO, or Beware of Online Gender-Based Violence. And then as Afra mentioned, the case spiked higher in the pandemic time. There is only me and 2 other persons is handling the helpline. So we really have limited resources. We cannot do this. We are burned out, right? So we sort of write our best practice when we are sorting out these reported cases through our helpline. We write it, we make a guidebook, and we put it on our website. This is the steps that you can do. This is the helps that you can get. And then somehow, the guidebooks really help not only the victim, but other service provider, because they can refer the victim to read this book first, and then try and see what mitigation they can do by themselves, and what else that we as service provider can do to support them, right? So it doesn't stop at that. We see that there is not many knowledge about online gender-based violence. That's why we also create, design, research on online gender-based violence, such as this one that I'll be giving to 3 of you, because I don't bring a lot of these publications. But you can download it online, because every modules that we make, every guidebooks that we make, every research that we make is free to download in our website called awaskbgo.id. So what is interesting is we don't only receive reports from female, because that is dominantly the victim of online gender-based violence, right? But we also have reports coming from males, from the LGBTQ community, from the blind and deaf community. And then we see that our guidebooks that we create, it's not inclusive enough, right? Because the blind communities cannot really access, or the visual impaired communities cannot really access this book, because it's in PDF format that is not really that accessible for the communities, right? So we also, through the partnership with DDP, their community network funds, we try to improve our accessibility. The resources that we have, we ask for the visual impaired and the deaf community to check it, whether they understand this guidebook or not. If they don't understand it, what can we do to help them access this book? So we consulted with them, and then we make an improvement with the guidance from themselves, right? And then not only that, we are trying to have their capacity on this digital security or on this online gender-based violence mitigation to be raised further, right? So we train them in a workshop done online, because it's still pandemic. And then after that, we push them or encourage them to have their own workshop. So they are being the trainer to their own community. So the blind and deaf community is now in Indonesia, not nationally, because we just started, but they are already spreading this knowledge of online gender-based violence through their own words, through their own means. And they can just reach out to us for support and anything, but they can now spread the online gender-based violence knowledge to their own community with their own words. So I think it's important that the helpline is non-discriminatory and is not putting words into the victim's mouth or putting words into the community's mouth. But it's important to actually encourage them so they can learn, and then they can spread the words around by themselves. It's not through us anymore. We just become the supporting community for the marginalized community itself. So I think that is the things that I can share with you right now. I actually have sessions longer than this on the 14th September, session 20. So if you would like to know more about online gender-based violence and how we mitigate it in Indonesia, please do come to my session. I would love to talk with any of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Ellen, for sharing your practices and to making sure that the documentations and guidebook also are accessible, and also providing training of trainers to provide inclusive space on your helplines. Moving on from the community-based organized helplines to legal framework toward to address this online harassments and also online gender-based violence, I would like to invite my colleague Radhika. You have 5 minutes, please.
Thank you, Afra. I really wish I was there to interact with you all in person, but I think this is great too. So I would like to just introduce a couple of things that we do, so that it helps the audience get a better perspective. We're a digital rights organization, which which runs a number of initiatives. One of the things that we do is something called a digital security training, where what we do is we equip people. Like Bishakha was mentioning a while back, how you can't tell people on the phone that like the step-by-step guide to securing your cells online, to making your profiles private. So we do a lot of these trainings. Of course, they suffer from their own issues, such as it's very difficult to organize these trainings. It's very difficult to do them online. They're very resource intensive. But there have been a number of things that we've learned through these trainings. So I am a lawyer by training, and I can, I would like to begin this by telling you about a small incident. So there was this girl, like she must be in her early 20s, who approached us, who said that she's been getting these calls from a man, at night, and he comes in and he calls her, and he asks her to engage in activities which she's not comfortable with. Of course, this person had no idea who the girl had no idea who this person was. How did he get a number? How all of these things happen? But he would call her at midnight, and he would scare her. So she went to the police station. She filed a complaint. She said that, oh, I'm not comfortable with this. I don't know what to do. This is cyber harassment, and according to Indian laws, it very well falls under the ambit of cyber harassment. The police station didn't do anything about it. She approached us. We were trying to help her out. The calls kept going on, and there was no respite. So every time she would go to the police station, she would come back and she would tell us that that towards the end of it, the police people said that, how do you expect us to deal with somebody who's calling you and abusing you when we have murderers to catch, right? So there's this understanding when it comes to online gender-based violence that it's just online. It's not going to translate into a physical space. So what is the need, to address it at an urgent pace? Uh, I mean, it's harassment is harassment wherever it takes place, whether it's online or offline. But the authorities, unless and until it can translate into a physical threat, do not really think that it's that big of an issue. If somebody's getting these harassing calls, or if somebody is facing trolling, doxing, cyberbullying online. All of these things, of course, have increased at a manifold level since the pandemic has started. One very interesting thing that has happened is girls who don't come from very well off social economic backgrounds, and again, referencing back to what Bishakha said earlier, how they use shared devices to connect online to attend their classes. Most of these have no idea how to keep themselves secure online, right? They're not taught, right? They're just given a device and they're told that, oh, you have to attend a class. They don't know what to share, what not to share online. EdTech is a big industry here. There are many multi-millionaire businesses which function on online classes and trainings. They give people tablets and smart devices to access a lot of information online. Yet there is no training that's given to these young children who might be, who might not have used devices before. They're not told that they're not supposed to share the credentials. They're not told that they're not supposed to share pictures with people uh, offline. They're not told a lot of these things, and they end up in a fix, right? Sometimes the pictures are stolen, and what happens then? Families, we're a very traditional society, we're conservative. If uh, if there is a bad picture that gets leaked online, or if there is and the families get to know, their devices are taken away. This is especially true for young girls who then lose their access to information, to education, to all of these things. And these are troubling trends. We did a report a while back on online harassment, and a few of the suggestions that came from it. Apart from this, the another very real part of the problem is the trolling that happens on social media platforms. There's Twitter trolling, there's Facebook trolling, there is trolling on Instagram, right? So the whatever changes that we have to make to ensure that the internet is a safe space for women, it's a safe space for marginalized groups, it's what we envisioned it to be, is that there has to be mass education when it comes to communities, when it comes to people. There are many small scale organizations like ours, like POV, which are working towards these issues. But unfortunately, with the huge amount of population that's out here, it's impossible to educate everybody with the small resources that we have. So these digital security curriculums need to be built into whatever we're teaching these students at school. There needs to be transparent follow up for the victims, right? There has to be a better reporting back mechanism. Uh, big tech platforms have a lot of money to be able to do that, and they really need to follow up with that. There has to be quicker response times. These complaints can't take forever. Content takedown has to be quicker, and it has to be in a way that free speech is not compromised. uh, Victims need to be given with necessary directions to seek legal help in the jurisdictions that are there. In India, we do have cyber cells in different places, but most of these cyber cells, the police people have zero idea on how to operate it, on how to deal with these cyber issues. They really need to be equipped better. There need to be mass skills training to be able to do that. So offenders, like people who troll online, people who steal data, they can very well create new accounts on platforms. But if we do an IP restricted blocking with better technical advancement, that can help. Uh, there have to be better reporting mechanisms, more transparent. The state at the same time needs to educate and raise awareness on digital rights offenses. Uh, the standard of proof need to be reduced in cases of online violence against women. Platforms need to be incentivized to do quick takedowns. Uh, Again, mass sensitization for police has to be done. There has to be a better, more comprehensive, gender-neutral legislation for cyber crimes. Where there is there provisions for evidence, dedicated cells to tackle cybercrime, and there also has to be like a tort mechanism where victims can be allowed to recover damages from perpetrators. In addition to this, uh, governments should also look at recompensating some of it, just like it happens in sexual assault cases. Basically, the bottom line of it is that harassment, whether online or offline, has to be addressed in a way that's victim friendly, that's quick, and that that I mean that it's gender sensitive. So I think that's what I would like to present at the beginning, and happy to answer any questions anyone has.
Thank you, Radhika, for highlighting one of the interesting part, the conversations, the roles of the digital platforms in the companies, and also how the government that can make more effort to be more sensitized to assisting these victims of online gender-based violence. So I would like to invite questions from the offline participants, and then next, my colleague Maitri will assist for the online participants. For offline participants, I invite, okay, please go to this microphone.
Okay, thanks for the opportunity to ask the question. I am from Myanmar. Actually, like the issue that I noticed in most community is the batons or like harassment, especially women and LGBTQ community are afraid to speak out about their violence that they are facing because they think that the society will judge them, and also there is no proper law and a regulation to protect them. So basically, what is your thoughts and then the messages to other the people who are facing from gender-based violence to speak out, how to loud, and also to be heard. And also, like the follow-up question is like, what are the best way to be heard? I have a separate question though. How do you think that the participation of all parties, like you're talking about like gender-based violence, but like I noticed that men participation fighting against gender-based violence is really low. So how your organization is working on to raise the men participation fighting against gender-based violence? And also the last question. So do your organization have plans for further mental health support for the veteran, and also like or like currently working on that? Yeah, how your helpline make them feel safe to open their issue and problem? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Also, the questions were more about how to make the victims more have a courage to speak up and also to report their cases, and also the best way to make sure of that, and any experience on how to increase male participations on campaigning preventions of gender-based violence, and also plans to working on. Maybe Alan, and then Bishakha, we can also invite you. But Alan, give you.
Okay, thank you for the questions, Mong. So first, how to increase male participation? To let them know that they cannot only be the perpetrator, but they can also be victims. And they need to help themselves, because many of service providers is usually providing services only for woman or child. So it's hard, right? So that's why in our helpline, we also become a non-discriminatory helpline. So everyone can report. If they don't want to disclose their name, it's okay. We don't verify it. We don't need verification of their IDs to help them with our services, because we only provide two, right? It's digital security consultation, privacy consultation, and then to escalate their problem to the digital platforms. We don't really need to verify it. So it somehow encourages them to report to us. We have the helpline up for 2.5 years now. We have more than 1,300 reports coming to us. Although I can say that 3/4 of the report is non-consensual dissemination of intimate images. And that's not only happening to women, it's also happening to males. That's not only happening to heterosexual community, but also to LGBTQI community and the blind and deaf community. So to make them understand what is this online gender-based violence, how it could happen to them, and what can they do by themselves, and what can they ask for help, I think it's important for them to have that kind of knowledge first. And then they can spread it around to their friends, through discussion with their friends or family and so on. I think it could help the situation. So I think it also answers the other two questions already. So yeah.
Okay, thank you. Bishakha, you would like to jump in on that?
Yes, thank you. Yeah, I think I completely agree with what Ellen said. You know, young women, girls, women are very, very hesitant to speak out about their experiences of online violence, for the simple reason that they're really scared that they will be prevented from using their cell phones, right? That the cell phones will be confiscated and they will be told, and it's kind of a blame the victim approach, that something happens to you and then you're told, oh, you know, to be safe, let's take away the device from you. So I think apart from anonymity and confidentiality, which is what we use on our helpline as well, I think the third is empathy, to really validate the caller's experience, right? Whether it's a very small problem, a medium problem, or something that's going on and on, to tell the caller that, yes, we understand that this is a problem for you, regardless of whether the consequences are in online spaces or both in online and physical spaces, right? I think that's one part of it. I think the other thing is I think if we really want people to speak out about online harassment, we have to educate their ecosystems. We have to educate parents. We have to educate the police, who often, like, you know, when a person goes with a non-consensual intimate image to the police, often the police will give them a lecture and say, but why were you sharing images in the first place? But that is not the problem. If you consensually share images with somebody and you've agreed that it's just for the two of you, you haven't done anything wrong. It's when that image goes outside the two of you and violates your privacy. But instead of recognizing that, often the woman is given a long moralistic lecture and basically told not to freely express herself online, right? So then that again shuts the person down. So I think some of this, and finally, with men, I think, yes, Men themselves face online harassment. We deal with that on our helpline as well. And also, men can often be allies. We often see with rural communities in India, when young women get harassing phone calls, they often turn to a sympathetic man in the family or a male friend and say, next time I get a call from this number, you pick up the phone and you speak to this person. So there is actually a lot of scope to do this, but we have to think about it somewhat.
Thank you, Bishakha. Ellen, you want to add?
Yes,
Few more
I
things?
just want to add something. We also don't rush the victim to make decision. We provide all of this information and they can take their time to decide which one that they want to take. Don't rush the victim. I think it's also important because they get traumatized with their experience with this online gender-based violence. Right? And then we as a helpline, you need to choose right now, what do you want to report to the police and so on? It could overwhelm them. So we at AwasKBGO also provide this free consultation, online counseling for the victims, because we have this donor from kitabisa.com. It's a crowdfunded, and they provide some funds for us to offer the victims a free online counseling. So I think it's also important not only to educate, but we need to also empower the victim themselves so they can become a survivor. Thank you.
Thank you. Before I invite another offline questions, so maybe Maithili, you can take it if there are any online questions.
Hi, Afra, thank you. I would really urge the online participants to put out their questions. I do not see any questions, but I would like to pose this question to all the speakers. Anybody, please feel free to go ahead and answer, because most of you have told that you go ahead with digital security trainings. You train the women, you train also the service providers and everybody. But I think there is a common problem here that the law enforcement agencies or people who have to take action somehow hesitate or take a back step when it actually comes to protecting the these victims. So have you had any trainings with the law enforcement agencies or police or people like that? Because you have most of you have said that you have had trainings with journalists, with different departments of the government. So what is your take on that?
Okay, thank you. Maybe Nurul, you can answer.
So, besides I'm a journalist that active in Koni.co, I'm also active in Alliance Journalists of Independent AJI Jakarta. It's like an organization non-profit, like unions for journalists that they fight for the violence like OGBV also. We usually like have many trainings for the journalists for building the capacity for the women journalists to can fight the violence like OGBV. I think unions can very important and help so much for us as journalists, because in mainstream media in Indonesia, it's lack of capacity building for journalists. They just concerned about the SEO, like search engine for the it's like what the trending topic in the trend that the journalist must productions, but also but sometimes they always like not to care about how the journalists fighting for the violence. I think it's EFG reported that so lack of action of media companies. It's happened to Indonesia, and I always experiences that in mainstreaming media, it's very hard to can find the training for the journalists, but the way to journalists for we can like collaborate with the unions, we can collaborate with the like Ellen's AwasKBGO ya. This is my
How
question.
about press council? Do you also educate them or train them as well, like press council members who has authority as well to educate the journalists and accept reports?
Okay, how we educate is actually basic knowledge first, and then we collect the data. We did survey, and we first the company to can like make the SOP, standard operational procedure, that like agreement for the journalists and media companies to like responsible media companies for handle and protection the journalists from any kind of violence.
Okay, thank you. Alan, you have something to say on experience working on working with law enforcement?
Yeah, it's frustrating. It's not a great experience, I can say, because a lot of them is very hierarchical and then patriarchal also. But we need them, right? They are at the top of this handling of online gender-based violence legally. So most of the victims wants to know who is the perpetrators. We cannot provide that answer because it's not legal for us to track down someone. We are just citizens, although we are not-profit organization. We don't have this authority to track someone and do something to that someone, right? So it's under the law enforcement jurisdiction to do that. It's not on us. So we are trying also to speak out, to speak with them, to coordinate with them. So it's hard because we are a non-profit organization speaking with law enforcement because they have this authority, right? So our strategy is collaborating with the Ministry of Women Empowerment and Child Protection because they also don't have this capacity to talk about online gender-based violence. They need us, the ministry. So we are talking to the law enforcement through this ministry. So yeah, that I can share.
So maybe I think I have another chance for offline questions because the time's getting
5 minutes. Okay, Kenny Huang, Executive Council Member of APrIGF and CEO of TDynamic. First of all, I'm not an expert in these particular issues, but we're working very closely with the service provider within locally and regionally, so public can share some information for you for consideration. Basically, from internet government point of view, we are not only looking for legal protection and legal environment to protect some sort of basic minimum requirement, but also looking for the other way to improve, to reduce the online misbehavior. And for example, like when we're working with the, for example, working with the internet intermediary, and we're working quite closely to understand how can we help based on certain abusive online behavior. For example, from their perspective, basically 3 components would be required. Probably you can consider. The first component, it would be a trust notifier scheme. If you do have set up a trust notifier for the intermediary, so the trust notifier could not only provide the information to them, but also provide a due process for them. So make sure that kind of notification can be trusted. The second component will be make sure this misbehavior can be written into service agreement. So based on a service agreement, they have the power to enforce and make sure all the subscribers, all the internet users can follow their service agreement. The third component will be a complaint and recovery scheme. For example, if someone has been complained that was misconduct or his account has been hacked by someone else, so that kind of sanction can be recovered based on due process. That's my recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you. So I think I can give floor to the next.
Hi, my name is Joyce and I'm from APrIGF, and I just wanted to thank you for this very important session. I wish there were way more people in this room, but my question is really more around, in using the hotlines, I'm sure you encounter some form of stigma, right? And this stigma is very usually rooted in cultural shame. And so I know Bishakha has spoken a little bit about it before, and also I hope to hear from other speakers. what are some specific or concrete steps we can take to help counter stigma, to help counter, resistance amongst the people from using these very useful helplines?
Okay, thank you. Alan, you want to pick up on that? And also after Alan, I think Bishakha and I invite other speakers, two speakers for closing statement.
Okay, to not give the space to the perpetrator, I think it's very important, right? But it's not our authority or ability to do that. So we need to really push platforms to really not give them any more space if it is a repetitive action. So that's what we are trying to push through the digital platforms. But I don't think it could be done alone. So I think more stakeholders need to talk about it. More men needs to talk about it. More men needs to know about online gender-based violence and how to really tackle them. Because the root is not in online, right? The root is in the mindset of person that they are trying to abuse someone because they have this more power than the other person. So I don't think that is very satisfactory, but yeah, thank you for asking, Joyce. Thank you.
Okay, Bishakha, you want to chime in on that? And then Radhika.
Very quickly, I just want to say that at a broad level, we really have to make communities and societies understand that technology is for all genders, right? And that girls and women have a right to be in digital spaces and online for a whole range of things, and sort of an equal right, because once that is understood, then some of the stigma reduces. Currently, the way, at least in India, in many communities, it's somehow assumed that girls and women don't really have a right to be online, and their usage is continuously monitored and surveilled by families, elders in the community, etc. So this is one of the root gender norms that we need to change.
Okay, thank you. And Radhika, do you have a final statement to respond as well?
Yeah, I think I would just like to add that it's been great hearing all panelists and even the audience, and I think it's all like all of this is very relevant. But there's also a need to really sensitize the law enforcement, because at the end of the day, we can make policies, we can make all sorts of laws, and legal rules, but unless and until there is a mass sensitization done for people who can address these things, everything else will fail, because there has to be online gender-based violence has to be taken seriously. It can't be something that, oh, because there's no physical threat to your life, so we'll not do anything about it. Online gender-based violence is as harmful as any physical threat to life can be.
Thank you. Nurul, you want to give final?
Okay, I want to wrap up. I think there should be no room for misogyny and gender or like gender-based violence. So let's create this safe space together. I think to wrap up.
Okay, thank you. Maithili, you would like to close the sessions, right? Give you.
Sure, sir. Thank you. Well, it was really enlightening to listen to the different, steps and experiences that you guys have been having while looking at the gender-based violences and trying to mitigate all of these and bringing safe spaces online for women and marginalized community across the world. So thank you so much. Thank you so much, Nurul. It was really great to know I don't think we have enough statistics on how women are, really facing issues. So it was really great to have numbers right out there to know how much of impact of how much of, effects that gender-based violence is causing. And it was really great to know the kind of work that you guys are doing to safeguard women journalists and different communities. Thank you, Bishakha. I really hope that you guys will be able to, go ahead with your Tech Sakhi in different languages and reach to women across India and help out victims. Thank you, Alan. It was really nice to hear out how you're collaborating with the ministries and the victims and different service providers. I really hope that this collaboration goes on, because all of us, really need to get together and make online space safer for everybody. And thank you, Radhika. Um, your statement about the remedy has to be quick, victim friendly, and gender sensitive, I think sums up the entire session and how things have to go on. So I thank all the speakers out here for this really great session. Over to you, Afra.
Thank you, everyone, and sorry for taking out a few more minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. I would like to give the books to the three person who asked the questions. Please come.
Recording stopped.